Yeah, welcome, clobberers and clobbites and all other wonderful friends out there. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to another edition of Clobby'S Comics Corner, the Spinner Rack Time Machine, October 1971, week 3. This is for those who don't know, this is when I take you back in time to my spinner rack comic shop. It looks like a spinner rack, but it's really a TARDIS whose chameleon circuit is set to look like that, but you enter it and you enter a comic shop time machine in which we, started this last month, of course, for those who don't know, 50 years being a nice round number, and I'm a big Bronze Age fan. What we do is this: we go and we kind of take you through, into the comic shop, and I show you what a comic book buyer, me, I was only 7 years old back then. Of course, I'm not that anymore. My 2021 self has a folder, a pull list at this comic shop, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to pick usually anywhere from 9 to 10 titles each week of the ones that I would have reserved for myself. There are tons and tons of comics that came out, of course, back then, and but I'm only it take forever to go through all of them. So just a little bit of a look at. It's a in a relatively short video. We hope a little bit of a look at the comics that I would have picked up, and of course tomorrow, there will be a video, Clobby'S Quick Bits, where I'll recap the ones that didn't quite make the cut, and just so a tiny little look at some of the ones that I would have picked out. Obviously, it's obvious. I'm a big time superhero geek, so it's going to be, I'm going to favor toward the fantasy and superhero genre here, but there were tons and tons of titles. We'll go into a little bit more of what titles were out there on tomorrow's, but today these are the ones that I would have picked, combining my early, my youngster sensibilities as a comics fan with what I would pick as an old comic book fan. My 2021 sensibilities are kind of mixed in there as well. So here are the titles I selected that I had on my pull list for October 1971, week 3. And then we'll start out with, I've talked about this a lot on the show. There were just, look, the racks were flooded with reprints. Just as today they're flooded, the bookshelves and bookstores and stuff, and then in comic shops are flooded with trade paperbacks. Well, these were the trade paperbacks of that time. The only way you could get your hand on old reprint stories, and in this case, Where Monsters Dwell, full of lovely old monster reprints. I figured I'd pick this one up out of nostalgia. You have various reprints from Tales to Astonish, Journey into Mystery, of the old Kirby, Lee, Ditko, Ayers monster comics. So that's fun stuff. And you have the nifty thing about it is, when you were a kid at this point, you were buying this back then. You didn't know it was a reprint. There wasn't a lot of chronicle comic book history to clue you in on what was a reprint, what was not. And I talk about this every week, how these racks were flooded with reprints, both by Marvel and DC. And, Gold Key reprinted a lot of the same stuff over and over as well, as some of the other companies did. So anyway, great Gil Kane cover is a bonus on this one, because, how can you not love a Gil Kane cover? Next up, we have World's Finest. Recently, I did a special on all the team up comics and stuff, and it covered World's Finest a little bit more. There's on one of my Monday night Mark C Comics talk shows. Always loved this Adams cover, just loved it. World's Finest number 208. Sorry, and this is at a point in the book where it was Superman and Batman, but for a while they started experimenting a little bit with Superman teaming up with others and things like that. Sort of a early precursor to DC Comics Presents, when Superman's own team up book later. But anyway, you have some nifty little stories in there. You have, you got a new story, then you would get because even the stories with, new front stories often had reprints in them. And of course, Len Wein, what a great fellow he was. And with some story by, some art by the great Dick Dillon and Joe Giella. Some, Dick Dillon, of course, so largely associated with Justice League of America for so long, but he did some other stuff as well. And then, again, the rest were Detective Comics reprints, as you can see. And again, look, it's not only a Neil Adams cover, and you got Dr. Fate, which how cool is that? You got to love Dr. Fate. But you got Superman. People used to bitch about this all the time. You have Superman pulling a planet, and I love it. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with Superman moving planets, but I'm weird and old. Batman number 37 with Robin of the Teen Wonder. Again, another. You're going to see some Neil Adams covers this week. A lot of them, and we're all fine with that. He and Gil Kane were extraordinary cover artists, and this, of course, during the Denny O'Neil run with that and Adams run on. And what was interesting about this is, and I looked it up and I looked into it. It looks like it's solid. A story idea from Bernie Wrightson. Yes, that Bernie Wrightson, that great artist, and even Harlan Ellison. Yes, who did kind of chime in on a few comics here. And they wrote a few comics, not a lot, but he wrote a few. Of course, you all know who that is. Harlan Ellison, of a famous science fiction writer who wrote a lot of television and stuff like that. Good old Harley, and he had something to do with this story. This story is kind of a classic. It has a lot of I've read reprints of it. I don't know if I have this actual issue, but it has a lot of fun scenes with Batman goes to a Halloween party and there are a bunch of dorks dressed in costumes, and some of them are based on some of the I think creative staff, let's say, at DC at the time and stuff, and it's pretty funny. Some funny scenes. Neil Adams, of course, with the amazing Giordano doing the inks, and then you have an older Detective Comics reprint in there. And again, I've always liked this Adams cover. I would a little gold key. Dan, do a little gold key every now and then, folks. And just because, who doesn't love Boris Karloff? Yeah, I know I can't. Boris Karloff. I mean, who doesn't? And of course, he had this series for many, many years, and they kept kind of reprinting them over and over again and stuff like that. But what the hell? Went a little bit off the plantation and picked up a horror comic, a horror anthology comic from Gold Key. Boris Karloff's Tales of Mystery number 38. Stars various writers: Arnold Drake, Paul S. Newman. Yeah, S. Newman, not the other Paul Newman, I'm sure. And various art by Jon Salardo, Paul Reinman. That's a name that I've seen around in other companies, as well as Jack Sparling. But always just these nifty covers by the great George Wilson, who does not get enough credit. One of the first and prolific painters of covers. And you got to love those Gold Keys painted covers. Next up, we have a landmark here. This is huge. Green Lantern, Green Arrow, number 87, the first appearance of Jon Stewart. So he's been around 50 years now. This, of course, is still during the O'Neil Adams classic, right around, just getting out of close to the end of the Hard Traveling Heroes phase, if that isn't over by now. But still, it's them it's the O'Neil Adams team still on Green Lantern, Green Arrow, their classic run. I have, of course, I don't have the originals, which are probably quite pricey now, obviously. But I do love the art on these. Are just fantastic. You got to love O'Neil Adams, the team, and there's even a secondary story by Elliot S. Maggin, who used to write some pretty good stuff with Adams art as well. And you got even a nifty little John Broome, Gil Kane reprint. I believe it's the Abin Sur reprint, origin story, with a great Adams cover. So again, this is a landmark. Jon Stewart, who is the favorite Lantern of many, because Jon Stewart, yes, he was in comics, of course, a good bit, but he really kind of became into the spotlight, kind of more popular with the Bruce Timm Justice League animated series of the early 2000s, which even though I'm more of a Hal guy, look, Hal Jordan's my Green Lantern, he's my favorite. I do like John, and John was good on that program, and a lot of people were, they were introduced to the character of, a Green Lantern. He was first for many people, so there you go, great Jon Stewart, and there is his beginning. So back to Gold Key. Let's just go weird again. How could I resist these Gold Key covers? And Turok's Son of Stone, of course, later, like many a few Gold Key characters and stuff, adapted to the Valiant series in the 90s, but there he is now, or then I should say, And of course, this is probably, and again, a lot of these Gold Key tended to reprint a lot of things and just put same numbering on them and stuff. But I'm not sure. I think these may not have been reprints, but they could have been. But those covers, wow, George Wilson covers, just amazing. So went ahead and jumped off the typical DC Marvel plantation to pick that one up. Another monster reprint book with various Journey into Mystery and Tales to Astonish stories in it. Kirby, Lee, Lieber, Ditko, Ayers, and some of those great names, and with a nifty Gil Kane cover. I just thought, man, what the hell? Let me pick that one up, just because it's kind of fun reading those reprint books. And again, at that time, if you were a kid in 1971 picking those up, and that was the kind of comics you liked the monster stuff. You didn't know what a reprint was. You just knew it was a comic book with monsters in it, and it had Marvel on there, so that's all that mattered, really. The Flash. I've said it before, talked about it. I kind of like the Cary Bates run on Flash, and Irv Novick was a for me an underrated Flash artist. I mean, the early Infantino stuff, Flash, not his later run, but his early one, is probably definitive for the Barry Allen Flash, and Barry Allen is my Flash. I just love him the most, of course, because I'm old. You know how it goes. Cary Bates was a fun Flash writer, Mr. Flash Facts, but Irv Novick always liked the villainous Batman. I don't know. I liked this Batman a little bit, but kind of Batman was kind of skinny, but Flash is supposed to be skinny, and Barry Allen is, and I really do like the Novick stuff on Batman on the art. And Dick Giordano is always on the inks there. Secondary story, Steve Skates. Remember him? Well, if you do, you're old. Dick Dillon did some Giordano work on that. Then we have a Flash, an old reprint. So, again, even a lot of these, books that their front stories weren't reprints, they managed to throw in a reprint here and there, one or two stories, in this case, one, in these things, which is, nothing wrong with that at all. But we have actually single story here, though. Justice League of America, my beloved JLA, and I love calling them the JLA. Number 95, destroyed. This was at the hippie era. They were getting out of it, even though you were still kind of in it in 71. As you can see, a weird, silly ass. Oh Lord, silly ass Adams cover with the sidebar of the Murphy. I don't know, the Nick Cardy or Murphy Anderson heads, whichever they are. Maybe Anderson. I don't know. But of course, Dick Dillon in the middle of that Dick Dillon run, and it's with a crazy Adams cover, but a lot of fun, a fun era. Just they were preachy, they were hippie like back then, because that's what DC was kind of doing. That people talk about comics being activists now. That's what they are now. They are all activism and nothing. But this one, they interjected things here and there, but they also knew that they had to have fun. And just look at those. I've never been convinced this was fully an Adams cover. I mean, it is. You can tell by the layouts and stuff, but he was inked. I think he was inked on this one a little bit. Sometimes they don't really give you all the info on that. But anyway, those are my selections for this week. And as you can see, and we'll talk about it more in the next segment, the Quick Bit segment, there were a lot of titles out. Always a lot of titles, because in comics, folks, there was a lot going on back then. A lot going on back then, because it was a thriving, healthy comic book industry. And I just thank you all so much for hanging out with me today on Clobby'S Comics Corner. You all are the best, and I appreciate it. And you can always feel free to drop in the comments below what you think of my selections, and what would be some of the ones you would have picked up. And because you can see it, there's going to be a link to this amazing source site, Mike's Amazing World of Comics. And I'll link it to the month that I'm using here. And I will play us out now with my wonderful intro extra made by my extraordinary and wonderful first officer, the amazing R.M. Raquel Briggs. And thank you. I will see you all next time.